The paradox of vengefulness is that it makes men dependent upon those who have harmed them, believing that their release from pain will come only when their tormentors suffer. Hoar is the god of revenge, of retribution, and of poetic justice. He is known as the Doombringer, as the god of revenge, the lord of three thunders, the hurler of thunders, and as the poet of justice. Or in the ancient kingdoms of Unther and Chesenta, he is known by his old name of Asuran. His legacy is to be whispered under the breath of all of those who would seek an eye for an eye. Hoar would generally appear as a 6 to 10 foot tall, dark, thin, and battered man with jet black eyes and a haunted appearance, wearing gold braces and the clothes of a wealthy noble or merchant. Or he might manifest as 3 deep, rolling peals of thunder that accompany deserved acts of vengeful justice, or as a ghostly, accusing hand, visible only to the guilty as their downfall grows near. The earliest records of Hoar locate him by the name of Asuran, worshipped in the ancient Mesopotamian-themed empire of Unther in eastern Faerun, wherein he battled Raman, the Untheric god of war. But the Doombringer and his followers were defeated and pushed out, while Mistra, the goddess of magic, and Anhur, the Malhorandi war god, stepped in to claim the spaces that he had once occupied. While Hoar, for his part, began to make his presence known in western Faerun, building small enclaves and plotting his revenge. During the time of troubles in the 14th century, when the gods were weak, Hoar possessed the body of the Chesentan king Hippartes and plunged the Chesentan city-states into a series of petty conflicts, which allowed him to take control of the armies of Chesenta and to march upon Unther. Thereupon, Hoar and Raman engaged in an epic battle of gods, ending as Hoar turned Raman's lightning bolts against him and slew his old enemy in a demonstration of poetic justice. But irony is a fickle mistress, and the victory was quickly soured as Anhur quickly swooped in and claimed Raman's power before Hoar could react. And then, empowered, he drove the Doombringer and his worshippers out of Unther once again. Despite his many setbacks, Hoar continues to take delight in arranging the downfall of those who have wronged others. And his calling card of 3 rumbling claps of thunder are the brief, sardonic applause that marks his appreciation for the punishment, delivered in a style befitting the crime. But since his rout at the hands of Anhur, the god of revenge stands at a crossroads. Will he continue to seek justice for the downtrodden against their oppressors? Or will he come to revel in the cruelty of revenge enacted upon those who have wronged him personally? To this end, the greater deities of Tyr and of Shar whisper in the Doombringer's ears, seeking to fashion his ire into a blade to wield in their own respective causes. With Tyr, the god of justice, viewing Hoar as a potential ally in punishing wrongdoings, while Shar, the mistress of the night, merely wishes to unleash the darkness that festers beneath the Doombringer's skin. Indeed, besides Tyr, very few gods of the light will give Hoar the time of day, with his only other allies including Beshaba, the mistress of misfortune, who delights in the suffering that surrounds the Doombringer, and the two work very well together to punish those who would spurn their worship, as well as Kiran Sali, the Banshee Queen from the Drow Pantheon, who has governance over revenants, being the undead that seek out their killers and take revenge. Or Shevaresh, the elven god of hatred for the Drow, who is blinded by his own lust for revenge. And likewise, Bane, the god of tyranny, sees Hoar as a potential soldier to sow discord and conflict for its own sake. Besides his old enemy of Anhur, Hoar shares a complicated antipathy towards Tymora, the goddess of luck. For irony and the circumstances of a satisfying revenge plot are more often the chaotic happenstance of luck than of any design. So the Doombringer is forced to appeal to Tymora's good nature for the satisfaction of his portfolio. Yet the Lady of Luck is, for her part, deeply disturbed that Hoar chooses to affiliate with her sister Beshaba, and is therefore loath to work with him. Ironic that the scales of justice and the fate of Hoar may be decided by the will of Tymora, as it were, by the flip of a coin. Hoar makes his home within the realm known as the Doom Court, within the lawful plane of Mechanus. It is a spacious, cold marble palace of echoing halls, liberally decorated with the heads on pikes of those who have opposed him. It takes a special breed of worshipper to seek out such an afterlife, as most of those who decorate the Doombringer's home are sent there as punishment. Hoar is a demigod, and his power and his worship have diminished greatly. His alignment is lawful neutral, for he seeks the execution of justice for its own sake. His clerics tend to adopt the trickery or the war domain for their willingness to engage in subterfuge and conflict as a means to an end. Or sometimes they will take the Tempest domain for Hoar's association with thunder and with fury, while some may also choose to take the Twilight domain and to try to draw their god closer to Tymora and to Tyr through their own good acts. Hoar offers his clerics the power to turn and to destroy undead by default, but he is not above offering them the power to rebuke and to command undead if it produces the desired outcome. His weapon of choice is named Retribution's Sting, and it is a javelin of lightning by which he smites his foes, and all of his divine casters train in the javelin in imitation of their god. His holy time is midnight, and his followers pray for spells at the stroke of midnight, often with the tolling of a bell, if indeed such disturbance will facilitate rather than incur wrath. His followers are known as Hoarites, and the primary act of their worship is to offer up a prayer to their god every time that revenge is enacted. They may also carve the name of those they seek revenge against onto items, sometimes made of lead, and bury them. But they also have two festivals that they hold as sacred. The first is named the Penultimate Thunder, on the 11th of Eliant, as the summer winds down, which is the anniversary of the slaying of Raman, to lavish feasting, bittersweet as the victory was. The second, lying on the 11th of Marpanoth, at the height of autumn, is named the Impending Doom. It is a day-long reading of grudges, of storytelling, of the ceremonial taking of oaths, and of exhaustive ritual purification, all to the endless rumble of many drums like thunder. His followers might include anyone who has cause to seek retribution, and yet few will dedicate their whole lives to revenge, especially once the wages of justice have been claimed. But nonetheless, he will find dedicated followers in unexpected places. Assassins and bounty hunters one might anticipate, but he is also followed by Githyanki planewalkers and spelljammer crews who seek revenge against the mind flayers who enslaved their race. Or he is also worshipped among some Fae of the Feywild, whose passions become inflamed more easily than mere mortals. In terms of formal churches, however, beside his foothold in Chesenta, he ranks among the major faiths in no lands, though across the unclaimed isles of the Sea of Fallen Stars, his worship does rank heavily among the pirates who infest the region. He has unnamed shrines where any may ask for vengeance, located within Baldur's Gate and on Dragon Isle in the Sea of Fallen Stars. But he also has notable temples, such as the Amphitheater of First Thunder in the independent city-state of Mokhtar on the border of Chesenta and Untha, that allows accusers and accused to meet in gladiatorial combat, as well as the Thunderous Hand of Vengeance in the warlike Chesentan city-state of Akanax that seeks to claim leadership of the Church of Hoar. Or the Hidden Hand of Fate is a growing temple within the Dale Lands, though his largest temple is known simply as the Temple of Hoar within Bezantur, the city of 1,000 temples within Thay. His clergy are largely itinerant and do not have to evangelize, for merely the act of telling stories of the punishment of wrongdoers and of apt, ironic justice will draw those who seek or fear vengeance near, either to secure revenge or to seek protection from it, for a small fee, of course. Many of his clerics multi-class as fighters as rogues or as Oath of Vengeance paladins, while his priestly ceremonial garb favors blacks and greys, especially black leather gloves, curved daggers, and a mask that is worn during the grisly business of revenge. They also carry at least 3 melee weapons, 1 slashing, 1 piercing, and 1 bludgeoning, so that they may finish off an enemy with the same type of damage that they wield, or even sweeter irony, with their own weapon. Though his worship is more common in the east and in the south, Hoar has 2 notable orders within northwestern Faerun. The Hunters of Vengeance are an informal collection of bounty hunters within the western heartlands and the savage north, who have grown to be feared and respected with equal measure, while the Fellowship of Poetic Justice is an order of bards and of paladins who worship Hoar and Tyr side by side, dedicated to spreading tales of ironic justice throughout the realms. In my world, the meting out of ironic justice is a recurrent theme. Indeed, the divine spell plague and the disappearance of divine power for half a century was precipitated by such events. The death or the disappearance of Lord Au, the Overgod, caused a war between the gods themselves, as without leadership the divine leaders of humanity could no longer contain nor lead themselves. Thereupon Lolth, the Spider Queen, died at the hands of her own pantheon, usurped by those she had spent an eternity dominating. While the God-Killer weapon, it fell into the hands of Kiran Sali, who could not handle such an item, so she placed it into the hands of a lowly revenant, who then turned and slew her as retribution for their own death. Savras, the god of fate, he fell to a creeping darkness that he should have been able to foresee, and in restoring divine power, Lathander, the god of creativity and of rebirth, became an authoritarian figure forced to defend the status quo. Surely, Hoar must have grown happy and fat at such a meal of delicious irony among the gods themselves. But his peals of thunderous applause were quiet throughout. Is he dead? Or is he alive? None can say, though he answers prayers wordlessly still. For if indeed Hoar fell and was consumed by the darkness that took Savras, then those prayers are a smokescreen for the service to evil, seeking the destruction of the world. And if this is true, then the hand of vengeance may guide the hunger of the darkness, or indeed the obsession of the Drow who invade and who slaughter the surface realms in recompense for millennia-old misgivings. Or perhaps this surfeit of retribution finally sated the Doombringer's hunger, and with devastating clarity he realized that he had become the first and the final victim of the degradation of violence for its own sake. And perhaps Perhaps he simply walked away. If indeed he has abandoned his post, then the elemental force of vengeance spills over without a guiding hand. If indeed it was ever controlled to begin with. Perhaps revenge, in fact, had domain over Hoar all along, and not the other way around. The edicts of the Hoarite faith are as follows. Upholding true and fitting justice is obtained through maintaining the spirit and not the letter of the law. Cause invites effect, and recompense will always accrue for one's actions. An eye for an eye, violence for violence, evil for evil, and good for good. The way of the Doombringer's teachings is to seek retribution, but not to do evil for its own sake, for that is the seductive path that leads to self-destruction. All injustices must be met with vengeance in the form of punishments that suit the crime. Revenge is the sweetest dish when seasoned with irony. Avenge all attacks. And finally, choosing not to respond to attacks against yourself or against that which you hold dear is a clear invitation for such attacks to continue in the future.